Hello and welcome to Unlock the Full Potential of Dynatrace Modern Log Management. Today's webinar is sponsored by Dynatrace and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker with Actual Tech, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this webinar. So we have a lot to cover today, and we can't wait to get started. But first, we do have some housekeeping details that are going to help you get the most out of this session. So let's start out in the chat tab on the far right-hand side of your screen. A lot of you have already been saying hi in there. We've got folks from Indiana, Massachusetts, Chicago, Irmo, South Carolina, New York City. It's good to see all you guys. If your state or country seems underrepresented, you can correct that by giving us a greeting in there. Now, that chat is for hellos like that, but you don't have to stop there. We're going to have a demo-heavy presentation today. We really want your feedback. What do you want to see? You let us know as we're going, and that'll affect how we deliver this event for you. So that's a great thing for the chat. The chat tab is also where you can go if, like me, you have any technical difficulties during the session. You can reach out to the Actual Tech Media team in that usually unlikely event, and we'll help you out. Browser refresh will fix most sort of tech gremlins. Another thing to try is that light mode option at the bottom of your screen. It'll limit some of your functionality, put you on a slight delay, but can really be helpful if you're having connection problems, even local ones. And if none of those steps fixes a problem for you, my colleague Arena and I are going to be standing by to help you out. We'll be monitoring that chat for any issues that you might have. Now, the absolute best way to dive into the information we're going to explore today is by asking questions. So let's take 2 hops over into the Q&A tab. Make sure we all know where that's located. So while chat is for all those, hellos and direction for the demo and thoughts, also technical support, the Q&A is what we'll be looking at during the Q&A portion. And actually, we've got a couple of people backstage ready to answer questions as well. So put your questions in throughout the event. We'll get to as many as we can, either by typing responses or by answering them live in the Q&A. And if we don't get to your question, if there are just too many, just don't worry. We're gonna pass all those questions along to the team from Dynatrace for follow-up. Now, another stop on our console tour today is the Docs tab. We've got some really nice stuff in there. There's 2 great educational resources. There's an e-learning course on the fundamentals of logs, and there's a best practices guide on log management and analytics. Also be aware that we have closed captioning available in 18 languages. If you hover over the lower part of your screen, you'll see that CC option, as well as a drop-down menu for languages. And finally, you may have noticed that prize icon. We are, in fact, giving away an Amazon gift card worth $250 as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, you must be in attendance for the duration of the live event to qualify for that prize, and you've got to meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions, which you can find in the Docs tab. One other thing I want to mention, there's a relatively new feature in the platform. It's a zoom function. So, a lot of this is going to be a demo. You can zoom in on the demo in different parts, if the screen is small to you, or if there's something you want to check out, so take advantage of that capability. All right. Well, with that housekeeping out of the way, I think we're ready to get into our session. Joined now by Rohan Shah, Director of Solutions Engineering for Logs at Dynatrace. Rohan, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everybody. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to your presentation. Let me just stop sharing the slides so you can share your screen.
Thank you. And I have just shared my screen now. Awesome. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out to join the webinar today. As the title says, we'll be unlocking the full potential of Dynatrace's modern log management solution today. So jumping right into it, a couple of housekeeping things already covered by Scott. I'll just briefly go over them again. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we have colleagues here from Dynatrace as well as Actual Tech who will help address those questions as we go along the webinar. Some of them will also be addressed live at the end of the session as time permits. This session is recorded, so you will get a copy of that at the end of the webinar, and it will be sent out to the email that you registered with, so you can go back and watch again if you want. And as Scott already mentioned, there's already follow-up resources that will be sent out along with the existing resources posted in the docs tab. So with that being said, any further ado, we'll get into this. So who am I? I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering here in Dynatrace for the Log Specialist team. Before I joined Dynatrace about a year ago, or a little bit over a year ago, I spent a decade in the financial industry. So I'm based out of Toronto, Canada here, and I have worked in 3 major banks and insurance companies here. Out of that, all 3 of them have been a customer of Dynatrace. And for better half of the decade, I've used Dynatrace as a customer along with many other observability tools out there. As part of Dynatrace's customer, I was also an evangelist, and I have presented at the Dynatrace Guild along with Andy Grabner, whose name you might know. And fun thing to note, actually 3 years ago, I was one of the first few people who tested logs on Grail and Dynatrace query language. So with that being said, I was very excited to join Dynatrace, and I was like, might as well jump over to Dynatrace and see what more I can do. And here I am. So going into the agenda for today, what are we going to present? So we're going to start with instrumenting a multi-tier Kubernetes app, which is an AstroShop application from Hotel, which I'll also get into for the microservices architecture to explain how that application is deployed today. We're going to set up seamless log ingestion and configure how logs are ingested from the Kubernetes environment itself into the Dynatrace environment. We're going to enrich the logs automatically during ingestion. So that happens out of the box using Dynatrace, and we're going to show how that happens, as well as at the end, once we do have all the data in one place, how does Dynatrace use Davis AI, Dynatrace's intelligence module, to run AI-powered root cause analysis to quickly identify and solve the problems with almost 100% accuracy. With that being said, there is a poll question that we do want to start with. So the poll question should pop up on your screen any moment now. And I'll stop sharing the screen just so that you guys get to see what the result of that poll is. And we'll give it a couple minutes. The question is, how are you approaching logs today? Are you using logs? Logs are managed in a separate tool from Dynatrace platform. Logs are managed across multiple tools outside of different Dynatrace platforms. Our logs are integrated alongside traces, metrics, and events. We'll give it 5 to 10 more seconds. You'll see a little poll button on your left side of the screen, or right side, I believe. It should pop up, and then you can just press and go ahead. All right, what we see is about 50% of you said that you use a different separate tool for managing your logs outside of the Dynatrace platform. About 30% are using multiple different tools outside of Dynatrace platform. So logs that managed across multiple different tools, and that's some of the silo problems that we see almost always dealing with a lot of customers out there. And logs are integrated in Dynatrace, so 20% of that. That's amazing. All right, let's get back into the presentation. All right, so let's talk about how do we actually get Dynatrace data in Dynatrace. So how does this platform actually work with ingesting logs from different sources? So as you can see on the left side of your screen, there's 2 different ways of ingesting logs in Dynatrace. And at the most high level, 10,000-foot view, as you can see, first is one agent. And those of you who are familiar with what Dynatrace one agent is basically our agent that can run on multiple different technologies. May that be your different application services, may that be your Kubernetes clusters, or just classic virtual machines. Just popping on the one agent on it automatically starts getting you the basics of the metrics, and depending on the full stack monitoring mode, you would also get different kinds of application services instrumented. On top of that, one agent comes with an auto detection module. What that means is that any of your key log sources on the system or the technology that you have implemented the one agent on, it will be able to detect the key sources and ingest logs straight from there into Dynatrace. On the other hand, we have the API endpoint, the second way of ingesting logs in Dynatrace. The API endpoint is configurable for multiple different inputs of logs. May that be OTel collector turing, which is OpenTelemetry. May that be telemetry pipelining tools like Cribble or Logstash, FluentD, FluentB operators, as well as your hyperscalers like AWS, Google, or Azure, and can go straight into the Dynatrace's API endpoint. Now, what happens when this data gets into Dynatrace's API or through one agent? It hits the doorway, or the first entrance doorway, what we call the open pipeline. This is where all your logs data is coming in. Now, through that, we are enriching the logs with context. This is where Dynatrace's magic happens of being able to connect the metrics, the traces, and logs all in one places. It understands where the data is coming in from, and it does the enrichment as the data is being processed and stored in the cluster. We are parsing the JSON for simplified analytics. That means you can parse the data on the fly. There is no schema on ingest. There is a schema on read in Dynatrace. We can mask sensitive data. So you can mask the sensitive data at the source, either using your whatever API shipper or one agent, as well as an open pipeline, you can mask the sensitive data. You can set security context for granularized permissions for the data that is flowing through the system. So every log record can have its own individual permissions if required. And on top of that, as part of the evolutionary process of logs, one thing to keep in mind is not always everything has to be logs. Why can't I just extract the required and the important metrics or business events out of the logs? And this is also what Open Pipeline gives you the flexibility of doing. You can extract the metrics and business events as you need from the log records and store that in Dynatrace's Grail cluster. And at the end, all of that goes into the Grail buckets. I'll show a quick brief of what that looks like in the next slide. And all of that goes into the Grail data lakehouse. This is where the Davis Dynatrace intelligence runs on top of it and does the causational analysis, which is what you would leverage in your output. May that be your Smartscape, may that be your log insights, may that be just your logs app or the notebooks app, or you're just dashboarding something to visualize your data that you have ingested. So what is Open Pipeline? I'm just going to double click on that for a moment before we get into the next step. So look at the image on the bottom right corner of the slide here. It's basically, Open Pipeline is your multi-lane highway, and all the cars are your data points from different sources being ingested. Now, may that be your one agent sources, may that be your hyperscalers, may that be your API endpoints, whatever you're using, may that be just a Python script running on your computer, sending logs to an API endpoint. All of that goes to Open Pipeline on the highway. In the highway itself, you have these cars that are set up to go into dynamic routing. What that means is you can set up routes to go have logs go to different pipelines for different processing rules. What that allows you to do is gives you flexibility of grouping logs from different sources or different types into certain pipelines and apply specific processing rules on top of it, instead of just applying generic processing rules on all the logs coming in. Through the pipeline, once the logs are processed, they basically exit off the highway, which is basically your Grail storage cluster. And as you see little buckets on the right side, the log records or the cars basically just go into those buckets, and that's where the data is stored for you to access. One pipeline can only go into one bucket, and then many pipelines can go to one bucket. That's just a relation model of how the Open Pipeline is set up today. Within Open Pipeline, there's multiple different stages of processing your data. So you have the first few stages of processing, data extraction, Davis, and metric extraction. And then the last 4 stages of permission, cost allocation, product allocation, and storage. The font is a little bit small on the image itself. So as Scott mentioned, you can zoom into the image in the screen here and go look into the actual words specifically if you wanted to. But what is showing you here is that the logs are processed in a sequential order. So every log record that enters the pipeline goes through the processing stage, data extraction, Davis, and metric extraction stages. And this is where the log record is processed through every single processing rule built into these stages. So if these has 5 or 6 or 10 processing rules, the log record runs through all of them and checks if it matches the condition and then gets processed. Versus the last 4 stages, which is the permissions, cost allocation, product allocation, and storage. It's the FIFO stage, first in, first out. If the log record goes into the permission stage, you only need to apply permission once. You don't need to apply it multiple times. So once it matches the condition, it exits out of that stage, moves on to the next stage. And that's how a log record generally gets processed within the Open Pipeline. For ease of processing, Open Pipeline does come with something called technology bundles, which is basically multiple different technology parsers out of the box available. The one that you see on the screen right now is the JFrog Artifactory bundle, which means there's already pre-built out of the box parsing rules here. So when a log record matches that condition for JFrog, it will automatically go through the processor stage and parse the data out of it. So a lot of technology bundles already available out there. Feel free to go and check it out. Now let's talk about why context matters. And this goes back to the poll question that we asked before, that having logs in different sources or different data points, or having it in one logs app versus Dynatrace. The reason why it matters is, and you'll see this in the live demo, once you actually have a problem card show up with a failure rate increase, and it tells you that there's something wrong with your application service, Dynatrace not only goes and looks at the full tech stack vertically, but for the service flow, it looks at horizontal stack to help you pinpoint where the problem started using the distributed tracing concept, then helps you quickly jump into the relevant logs. So keep in mind, you did not have to go and search for the logs. Dynatrace surfaces the right logs for you in that moment. And then clicking down further on that, it can take you down to the trace specifically that failed and helps you show the whole waterfall analysis of where the trace started, where it ended, and at which points it faced the 400s or the 500s and the errors, along with the stack trace exception, as well as the log error message for root cause. And we will see all of that as part of the live demo today as well. And this is why context matters, because as you see from the quote below from a customer that recently just shared this with us, they used to spend hours trying to search through metrics and logs and traces to piece together from different tools that they had out there for user experience. Now it takes them minutes or seconds just because the data sits in one place where all the data is contextualized together. Now, there is that one question where how does Dynatrace do the enrichment of logs with trace and context, trace and span context? And this is one of the questions that has come up so many times when I've talked to customers in the field. And the answer is pretty simple. There's no magic here. It's just automatically for popular logging frameworks. So what it does is one agent, you can toggle on the features in your Dynatrace settings, and whatever technology you're using, may that be .NET, Python, JavaScript, you go and switch on the logging frameworks, and it will automatically start enriching your logs with traces and spans. And then what also happens is for things that are not monitored by one agent, Dynatrace also provides guides for enrichment using other methods, as well as for OpenTelemetry. All right. Without boring you guys with further deck material, we're going to go into the AstroShop application service and actually show you what the live demo is going to be of instrumenting the Kubernetes cluster, going all the way down to the problem card. What you see on the screen is the architecture diagram of the AstroShop application. This is an OpenTelemetry application supported by the OTel community. So if you were to go on the OTel page, actually today website, you will find the same application available for you to go and run and test and do the same things that I'm doing. So feel free to go to the page and check out the application service. And as you see, it's a very micro-architected application. And what I'm going to do is next steps. I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. We're going to jump over to my browser window, and perfect. The window is on there. All right. So what you guys see is the Kubernetes page in Dynatrace. So many of you, when you log into Dynatrace, the first thing you will see is a launchpad like this. You can simply search for the Kubernetes app up here, or you can just go into the Kubernetes app that is already put on the launchpad. A launchpad is basically like a page of bookmarks and documents that you can put together. Now going into the Kubernetes app, instead of even going into what the existing things have been monitored, our focus is to let's monitor a new cluster. So we'll go on the top right and press the add cluster button. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more here. Now, as you see here, the first thing is it just walks you through the steps of what you need to do to actually enable your cluster. And the estimated time is 3 minutes, which is pretty fast, to be honest. To monitor from a cluster that has nothing set up yet, going all the way to full stack monitoring in under less than 3 minutes. So what I have done, as you see on my tabs up above here, I have the Azure cluster spun up. So I'm going to choose the Azure Kubernetes service. There's 3 different monitoring modes that you can choose from. The Kubernetes platform monitoring is the most basic form of monitoring, which will give you monitoring on your infrastructure of the node, some basic metrics, and some basic data points that you get out of the Kubernetes node itself. The Kubernetes platform monitoring plus the application observability gives you that full view into the automated distributed tracing, service flow, code level and service insights, as well as profile optimization and more. Now, the last one is the one that we're going to do today is the Kubernetes platform monitoring plus the full stack observability. This is where, along with the platform monitoring, we're also going to deploy the one agent, which is going to help us pull data in for the full stack of your node, which is your host and process availability, your network analysis, your disk analysis, on top of the existing application observability of your APM insights and tracing coming along with it. Once you choose the mode, it's just simply flipping back and forth. You can choose between the Dynatrace log module here, and then go straight into the telemetry endpoints for data ingest. So if you have other data points like OTLP, Jaeger, stats, Zipkin coming through, you can enable those as well. We'll leave this as is default for now. My cluster name is logs with demo webinar. I'm just going to select that here. Now, network zone and host groups are put here is just for better grouping of data. So when the data comes into Dynatrace, it is better grouped into the host groups or network zones. It's easy for you to identify and find out your nodes. Let's say if you have multiple nodes within the same group. So I'm just going to name it logs webinar 1, and then I'm going to do the same here, LPD01. Now you can quickly generate the token here. So you can press the button generate token, and what's it going to do is it's going to create an operator token and an ingest token, and it's going to load that into your Dynacube file. And then you simply press the download button. It's going to come loaded with all the things configuration that is required to get the Dynatrace operator and the services running. First step, we're going to go grab this and we're going to copy that over. We're going to go into the webinar, the cluster here, run this. And once we start running this, what we're doing is we're basically going and saying that, hey, I need you to go and pull the Dynatrace operator and put that in the cluster that I have created. Once that happens, what we'll do is I just need to make sure I'm on the right context setup here. So I'm going to go here and we'll do oops. We can now check if the Dynatrace pods are up and running. As you see, the operator, one agent, and the webhook is already running. We can apply the Dynacube here. So we're going to go here. I already uploaded the Dynacube to my Cloud Shell for saving the time here. And as you see, it's already created the secret and applied the Dynacube. So what happens after this? Now, after this, what you're expected to do is restart your workloads in a rolling manner. Once that happens, it starts instrumenting every single pod and container coming up with the right application and the Dynatrace agent and the Dynatrace operator. So it can inject itself and start reading your logs, your metrics and traces coming straight to Dynatrace. What we'll do is we'll jump over to the Dynatrace platform now. And what you see here is my cluster, Arsha AstroShop CNFS, Cloud Native Full Stack Monitoring Mode. Now, you will, as soon as you go into the Kubernetes app, as we were talking before, you go into the cluster section and it shows you all the nodes that you have instrumented. Of course, for the ease of the demo, I made sure that I had another cluster running. So this is the one that I'm going to use. One quick thing to note here is, let's say if I have node warning signals and I don't know exactly what to do with them, I can always click on this and press the button that says Explain with AI. And what that will do is it will run the Dynatrace's intelligence module on top of it and go and explain to me exactly why this happened and what are the typical root causes of why this warning sign will show up. Once that shows up, it also tells you what the remediation steps are. So gone are the days where you had to go and Google your error message and try and figure out what's happening, go through Stack Overflow and whatnot to figure things out. It's doing all of that research for you at a click of a button within the platform itself. That's less context switching for you to go and solve the problem on your day-to-day life in production support. Now let's jump into the cluster. So what are we seeing here? We are seeing the cluster being monitored. We are seeing all the nodes, namespaces, workloads, pods, services, and containers running here. I can get a quick overview of my cluster. I can understand what my workloads look like today. I can go onto the info tab. This is where you'll see all the data that is how the monitoring has been set up, the activate version and whatnot. So it's just giving you a quick insight into that. And then in the utilization tab, it gives you a drill down of all the metrics available for your cluster. So your basics from CPU, memory to the pods, your container events that are happening, the traffic flowing through each of these. It's in a quick overview. And then also at the same time, you can jump over to the logs tab and shows you the logs in context. Now, this is the key thing here. So going from your cluster to the logs within seconds of just loading and instrumenting something. Let's jump down to the actual application, the AstroShop application. So what we'll do is we'll go down to the namespaces. It will automatically filter for that specific cluster filter. I'm going to select the hotel demo. So that is the namespace that I've chosen for my AstroShop application that I spun up. What you see here is once I instrumented this using the Dynatrace operator, it not only pulled the basics of the overview, the info, whatnot, but you can see here it's also pulling all the labels and the annotations that I have for that specific namespace. Once again, all of these can be used as part of your filter mechanism in Dynatrace, which makes your life a lot more easier when you're trying to search for specific data points. Jumping in here, once again, you go through your utilization, the same metrics, your quote, the logs right here, and then you can drill down further. Let's take a step further and go into the workloads. And as soon as you press the workloads button, you see it automatically applies the namespace filter on the filter bar up there. Now within this, I have multiple different services instrumented. So all of these services, go back to the picture that I shared on the deck before I jumped into the live demo. We saw multiple different microservices being architected there. We're going to pick the front-end application here. So the front-end application here shows me that it's running right now. It's using CPU, memory, whatnot, how many pods are running. As soon as I go into the application services, it tells me what application services have been identified for that front-end cluster. For this one, apparently there's none running. And if I go into the logs right now, I'll just go for the last 7 days of data. And then as you go and see into the app services, there's 3 application services running, which is the front-end JavaScript module itself. We're seeing the request executed in the background that is sending, and then the front-end service running on top of it. What I can see is if there's any alerts, they would show up here in these 2 columns. But also at the same time, I can see the failure rate has pretty much remained stagnant for these, the response times, and the throughput of these. I can also just quickly expand on this and have a little bit more detailed view of what that looks like for each application service. Now, what if I wanted to understand this failure rate a little bit better? I think that my information for the root cause or the context of this error lies within the logs. I simply go over to the logs tab. As you see, Dynatrace automatically tells me the logs that are not with any log level status versus the error ones. And I can just select the show error logs button specifically, and it will load those 100 error logs for me. Now, so just a quick 30-second recap. I started from the Kubernetes cluster, went to the Kubernetes cluster in the app itself, drilled onto the namespace, drilled onto the workload. From there, I went into the specific front-end service and looked at the logs, all without writing any fancy query language. So it surfaced the error logs for me for that problem in a specific time frame. And it showed up here for me, and I did not even have to go and write a query language. And that's how logs and context matters. That's how you go from not having any context of trying to find something versus going straight down to the context of having everything in one screen. What we'll do is let's go to the problems app. Now, on the flip side, this is where I was right now going and finding the problem myself. But what if a problem card shows up itself? And as you see here, I'll just press the refresh button real quick. This is the problem screen in Dynatrace. This is a problems app. And a lot of you who might be working in production support might live your day and night in this screen where you're looking for active problems showing up. As you see here, the problem showed up for the AstroShop application right here. I'm just going to click on this one specifically. And what I'm seeing here, there's a few things to note. So let's just break down this problem record. You're going from your affected front ends to the services. It gives you a quick overview of what is broken and what is affected today. Apart from that, as you see here, it also looks at the affected infrastructure. So it does a whole T-shaped analysis of your root cause. It looks at the application service flow for the root cause, as well as it pinpoints down to the vertical stack itself, where this root cause was and which cluster it's coming from. Now, it attributes the failure rate increase to the specific service, and you can see the spike happening here. I can drill down to the AstroShop payment service if I wanted to, but also at the same time, it tells me that, hey, there was an Argo CD deployment that just happened a few minutes ago, a while back, which is also related to this. So once again, data in context, you have events, logs, metrics, traces, and context. I can quickly see that, okay, this is potentially related to a deployment as well. So that already tells you something's wrong from the last deployment. I might have to roll this back. But what is wrong with the last deployment? And for that, we flip over to the logs tab. What you can see here is that it tells you that there's multiple different logs, thousands of logs being identified for that specific problem, for that specific root cause. You don't have to go through all the logs in context. You can and look at all the logs if you wanted to. But what we can do is we can just look at the last 100 error and warning logs, and it will limit all of that to tell you exactly where the problem lies. And it will show you the problem right here that, hey, you know what? There's a problem right here. There's a warning. The payment for American Express could not go through. But that is just a warning message. Let's expand one of the error messages. For the error message, it tells you that it was trying to prematurely close the connection and whatnot. Along with that, you see these purple and green key value pairs for each log record. All of that is showing you log attributes that are assigned to the log record, which is the magic of one agent of enriching the data with context when it's coming into Dynatrace. Now, what I can do is to drill down into this further, I can just press the 3 dots and press the view trace button. And with that, it will take me to this screen right here. So with that, it shows me that there's a flow happening here. And I can just press the plus button and see the whole flow of where the problem happened. So I can actually see and go through the whole distributed trace, start from the API checkout, going all the way down to the specific service that caused the problem. Also, at that same time, I can go look at this specific HTTP status of which call was successful versus which was not, and the log records attributed to those specific traces. Along with that, it shows me the log records for each of these specific problems or the spans. That helps me quickly identify what I'm looking at and how do I know which logs are relevant to that specific trace. So instead of you trying to find a needle in a haystack, it gives you the smallest haystack possible of logs for that application service, for that trace, so you can easily drill down into this and helps you go to the root cause and solve the problem as fast as possible. One other thing to mention here is as part of this, Dynatrace's contextualization and connecting all the different services throughout, there's an open with button that you will see across almost every single application in Dynatrace. When you press this button, I can choose to open the same log records in multiple different apps within the platform. And for this one, I'll choose the logs app, which will take me down to this page here. And then it will already filter for that specific time frame and the trace ID. And then just pressing the run query shows me the same log records that I wanted to see. And then quickly expand on that, it will give me the breakdown of the JSON message, as well as the topology information, and the fields, which is basically the log attributes that are enriched to the log record here specifically. Once again, if I wanted to, I can quickly go back to the trace from here if I wanted to, or I can press the explain log button and it can actually explain the log record to me here in detail and tell me what this log record is about. And it all happens through the click of a button on the screen when you're going through a problem analysis or just investigating certain logs in your environment. All right, with that, we will go back over to the deck, and there we go. The deck should be back on your screen. Now, where do we go from here? So we got the logs, we got a Kubernetes cluster instrumented. It started to send metrics and traces and logs to Dynatrace. Through Open Pipeline, we ingested those logs, we got those stored in Grail, and we saw those data in context as part of the Kubernetes application and problem records in Dynatrace. There's 3 stages of maturity here that happens after logs are ingested in Dynatrace and being used on your day-to-day. You can convert logs to metrics. You have enhanced performance. And this is the question that comes out of this. Like everybody, the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, why do I want to convert logs to metrics or events or SDLC events? You have metrics, basically because it is enhanced performance. It is efficient storage. You have faster query performance when you're looking at millions of data points coming in. You have better scalability for handling of large volumes of data. As well as it is a simplified way of alerting the data. So for example, if a certain value just goes over a certain data point or a certain threshold, or if a certain metric is just showing up multiple different times, you can create a counter metric or a value metric. You also have logs to events. So if there's a situation where you have certain error keywords show up, if there's a keyword, if there's a certain phrase that shows up and you want to alert based off of that, you can generate something called the Davis event as part of Open Pipeline. And you can do the same with business events. If there's a business grade data, and we know that there's so many different application services that write business data to the logs, we can ingest those, extract those as business events, and also display that on a dashboard, visualize or analyze that as well. And then the last but not the least is your SDLC, which is software development lifecycle events. Imagine your scenarios where you have your pipelines running, Jenkins, GitHub, Argo CD, whatnot, Azure DevOps. You have these pipelines running, but you want to visualize those pipelines. How do you get those pipelines in Dynatrace? It's as simple as ingesting the logs from those pipelines into Dynatrace, and you can convert those into SDLC events as part of the processing that is happening live in Open Pipeline and store those as events in Dynatrace Grail. And that's pretty much it. Some of the key takeaways from the webinar today: we did a guided agent deployment, simple agent for logs, traces, metrics, and more. Centralized agent configuration, centralized data pipeline management, which is using Open Pipeline, and we did native support for OpenTelemetry. We are going to have some other practitioner webinars as well after Perform. Please join us for that. It's going to be about log management and analytics at scale, as well as for Open Pipeline best practices. And I'll hand it back to Scott for Q&A.
All right, great. Yeah, you know what? And Rohan, if you want to stop your screen share now, I'll pop this slide back up.
Mm-hmm.
Great, excellent. So really, really nice demo. Really appreciate that. We do have some questions rolling in here. First one I'll ask came from Paul, and Paul was wondering, how does Dynatrace recommend enterprises rethink and adapt their data retention and lifecycle policies when logs evolve from being reactive troubleshooting assets to proactive intelligence assets?
Oh, that's a heavy question. I don't think I can do justice to that question by just let me try and address this as much as I can. So the retention policy, at least in Dynatrace, that we allow for each log record can be stored up to is 10 years. How do you think about the retention policy over a period of time? I think you have to think of it as like, what are your compliance and regulatory requirements for your industry for storage? But at the same time, for more proactive measures, I think that's a little bit different. So I would split those two apart. For the proactive measures of trying to understand your MTTRs and look at your data points specifically. Dynatrace's Davis AI looks at the log records as they're coming in context and helps you look at that. There is basically, for 10 years of storage, there's no rehydration required. There is no tiered storage. We don't store data in tiers. So whenever you need to go back and look at those data, it's all there available for you in hot and hot storage, and you can quickly go and look at that. And that's essentially how I would quickly answer it, because this question requires a lot more back and forth to understand what your current architecture and landscape looks like.
Okay. All right. Excellent. There's another question here from Joseph, which Troy answered with some resources, some resource links, but maybe you could just sort of provide like a general answer. So Joseph wondering, does Dynatrace ingest custom logs or just OS and typical application logs?
That's a great question. Dynatrace ingests all logs. So you have your custom logs or operating system logs, application logs, network logs, audit logs, whatever logs it is, we can ingest that through Dynatrace. So if it is one agent can access most of the logs sitting on whatever server. So may that even be your syslog server. You can plop a one agent on top of it, and then you can just pull those logs in. If not, you can use a syslog collector as well as OTel collectors to send data to Dynatrace. As well as your network logs. So yes, also for custom logs, we do have a one agent custom log module, which allows you to actually go and define specific custom log sources that you want to look at, and also can ingest those log sources from different technology stacks.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Another question here about Kubernetes. The question is, in the context of Kubernetes monitoring, is it unnecessary to configure ingest log rules?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, please, Scott?
Yeah. Another way to think about it, are ingest rules already configured in the Kubernetes environment?
Yes, that is correct. So when you're spinning up the Dynacube, and when I was applying the Dynacube, it was already pre-configured there. So you can, as you saw when I was setting it up, there was a flag that had switched on for log management and analytics. And when you flag that on, it will basically start ingesting those logs when you deploy that to your Dynatrace cluster. Once it is deployed, you can then go take care of that through the Dynatrace settings itself. So if you want to switch it back off, or you want to only have selected namespaces being ingested, you can do all of that through the Dynatrace settings UI as well, and the API endpoint.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Here's one. Can the trace connect to a database query?
It's just as part of the distributed tracing that I was showing, as you saw, when you do have a trace going all the way, so as long as your tech stack, which let's say has the database on it and is being monitored through one agent, and we also have multiple different extensions available for different database monitorings or integrations for database monitoring. As long as you have your tech stack properly instrumented with the monitoring services and logging services, then yes, the trace can connect to a database query specifically, can show you those top query hits, the highest response times, and whatnot coming out of that query as well. Yes.
Okay. All right. Another question here: in what ways can Dynatrace's automatic log enrichment using topology and dependency contexts help accelerate root cause analysis in more complex microservices?
That's a great question. And this can be looked at from two different points of view. So one is you're looking at your vertical stack itself. And this is you're starting from your node itself, your cluster, going all the way down to your workload and API endpoint. That is basically your vertical stack right there. And then on the other side, you have your horizontal stack, which is basically you're going end to end from the services. So what Dynatrace is doing is part of the Um, sorry, Scott, there was a flicker on my screen.
Okay.
I'm back again.
Okay.
I think I
I
lost
still
him.
heard you and saw you, so you're good.
All right, you did hear me. I didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
can you just repeat the question one more time? Because I feel like I lost track of everything in this with the flickers that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, it was a long one. In what ways can Dynatrace's automatic log enrichment using topology and dependency contexts help accelerate root cause analysis in more
Yeah,
complex
thank
microservices?
you. Yes. So with that being said, so like you have your full stack being monitored here. So you have your vertical stack and your horizontal stack being monitored. What's happening is that as part of the problem, when a problem occurs, when an anomaly occurs, what Dynatrace, like the intelligence and the Davis AI does, is that it looks at your vertical stack and your horizontal stack for your service flow, and then pinpoints that root cause down to where the origin of it started. So as you saw when I was looking for the problems app in the problem record, it understands and connects all the different entities and the cloud application instances and whatnot using the one agent topology and the smartscape topology out of the box, which helps us quickly identify where the problem was and go down there. And that's why giving more data to the AI for more context is always better.
All right, super. And we probably got time for one more question here. Got a question from Manthan, who's wondering, can we use Open Pipeline to ingest custom logs by pre-parsing the JSON data before ingest? Oh, wait, and there's more to the question. Hold on. As opposed to post-parsing the data after ingestion.
Yeah, the answer is yes and yes, and you can do so. There's a few different ways of looking at it. The first is yeah, you can do that at Open Pipeline, so you can set up a processing rule that flattens out the JSON or parses the JSON out to whatever fields you want to extract, and have that attached as an attribute or to the log record itself. So yes, that is possible. You can also do that in post parsing, as you already mentioned, through the querying. And then the third one, which is, let's say if you're sending it through an API endpoint directly in a JSON format, it automatically goes in the JSON format, which doesn't require any further parsing because the data automatically gets parsed out at that interest. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, Rohan, I think we're about up on time. Thanks a lot for that really informative presentation and great demo, and then all the insights here in the Q&A. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you very much.
All right. And before we wrap up, we do have a couple of things for you. Before we get to the prize drawing, we have just one quick favor to ask. So Arena's opening up a short survey that we'd really appreciate if you could all fill out. This is for those of us on the actual tech media team. We just want to know how we're doing and what y'all like and don't like about our sessions. Want to make sure we're meeting your needs, and the results of the survey will affect how we deliver these events for you in the future. So we'll give you all just a minute to fill that out. And while you're doing that, I'll just mention a few things. Two great educational resources, an e-learning course on the fundamentals of logs, and that best practices guide on log management and analytics. And actually, Rohan, did you want to come back for a second to talk about I think there was a conference and we might have missed that slide.
Yes. Yeah. If you have
here, let me turn off the screen share. Give me or the slides, and you can pop up that slide if you'd like.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Because I think there's a QR code in there. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that, Scott. So
sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys, as you guys know, Dynatrace's Perform conference is upcoming from January 26 to 29. It's going to be in Vegas at the Venetian Hotel. And what you see on the right side is a QR code, which you can just quickly scan on your phone, and that should bring you to the registration page. We do welcome you there. There's going to be 2 days of learning sessions, training sessions, as well as there's going to be like a learning lounge. Along with that, on the next 2 days, there's going to be amazing keynotes, and as well as breakout sessions and live workshops people can attend. So highly recommend you attending there. We have thousands of people joining there every year and take a lot back with them from what they've learned there. So we welcome you there.
Yeah, so Rohan, as you leave stage, you can feel free to leave your screen share up. We'll just leave this QR code up here for the duration of the event so people can grab that code. But the last piece of business, I do want to announce today's winner of a $250 Amazon gift card. It's Mark Ahlers, Ahlers. I'm not sure if I'm butchering your name, Mark, but I'm sure you'll forgive us because you're getting a $250 Amazon gift card. Mark from Maryland, congratulations. As always, we'll be in touch about claiming your prize after the event. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Dynatrace for making this event possible. Giant thank you to Rohan for a great chat. Big thanks to Austin and Troy on the back end for answering questions and providing resources. And thanks to all of you in the audience for joining us today. It was great having you all here for this Actual Tech Media event, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.